Well, I just filled up the Odyssey here. This thing had pretty much no gas in it when I got it. I just put 3 gallons in there, and we're just running out of the bottom of the tank right now. So I'm guessing, I mean, this tank looks really good, but I'm guessing at the seam, kind of where it's together here, somewhere up inside there, it's got a leak. Pretty positive it's coming from the tank itself, because all the lines seem dry everywhere, and it is just dripping right from the bottom side of the tank. So something else to fix on this thing. So I guess I'm gonna pull this gas tank out and clean up a mess. I just pulled the gas tank out of the Odyssey. Wasn't too bad. It kind of slipped out the back side, which was nice. Didn't have to pull anything else off out of the way. But so I put 3 gallons of gas in this thing right away, and it's completely empty. But I think this is what's going on. I think we got a little rust spot underneath here somewhere, or a pinhole or something. But I believe that's where it's running out of. Maybe this drain bolt here too. But so I'm gonna get this paint cleaned off of here and see where the heck this thing's leaking from. See if we can patch it. Well, there would be our problem. Got a bunch of pinholes here. Clean that paint off, and pretty obvious. There's some good holes there. This one, the paint was kind of bubbled up, but everything looked fine underneath it. So that's probably okay. But well, we'll patch these holes, and this tank should hold some gas again. I pulled the carb off of this thing quick since I had the gas tank out of the way while I'm fixing that. Pull this apart and just double check some stuff. Make sure the jetting seems okay on it and everything, and make sure everything's nice and clean on it. There's a little bit of debris down inside this carb, so I'm gonna pull the jets out quick too and just make sure that those things all seem okay. The main jet in this was a 132. The manual, kind of online, stayed anywhere from like 142 to 148. So this thing was set up a little lean. Pilot jet was a 45, which seemed normal. So I'm gonna look through my jets here and see if I got something a little fatter, and we're gonna put that in there just to be safe. Found a 148 jet. We're gonna go with this. Parts breakdown does show this as one of the options too. So we're gonna put that in there. We'll be nice and safe, a little rich, see if it runs any different at all. Okay, it's been a few days since I've worked on the Odyssey. Got caught up on a few other things, so I'm gonna tackle this thing a little bit more. So where I left off previously, I was fixing the gas tank on it. So there was a big pinhole in the bottom side. I fixed that, but there was a drain plug on this guy too, which that's still dripping. So I'm leaving like an oil spot there. So I need to address that. I think it might just be the little sealing washer on that. Another thing that I didn't really show is I was playing around with the clutches on this. So like before, in the first video on this guy, the clutches were not shifting all the way open. This secondary clutch, I pulled it apart, cleaned it. It seemed to shift open a little bit better, but just felt like it was stuck in first gear, would not upshift. So I pulled the primary clutch off, and when I started looking at it, I noticed the taper seemed almost identical to all the Polaris stuff. And a real common upgrade on these clutches is the Comet, like 102C clutch, which is basically identical to a Polaris clutch. So I thought, well, you know what? Those tapered shafts look almost identical. Let's throw a Polaris clutch on there and see if it fits. So this is a clutch I laid around. I think it's off of like an old 400 Explorer or something like that. Not 100% sure, but it fit right on there. And honestly, the Polar is the same between the Polaris clutch and old Honda one that was on this thing. So right now I've got a Polaris clutch on there. And then when I was messing with the gas tank, I did rejet the carb. So this thing originally had a 138 main jet in it. When I looked at the parts breakdown just on like Partzilla, it showed the main jet anywhere from like a 140 to like a 148 or something like that. I had a 148 laying around. I threw that in there, and this thing ran like complete crap. Like it will start up in idle, but it just barely revs up enough to move, and when it does, it just chokes and stuff. So I'm gonna pull this car back out. I think I'm gonna put a 140 jet in. I picked up one of those. We're gonna start with that. When I looked at the actual jetting chart in the service manual and stuff, like a 140, 142 is kind of about ideal for this elevation and temperature. So we're gonna, like I said, I had a 138 before, so we're gonna go a little bit richer, do a 130 or 140 in it, and we're gonna see how this thing runs. And we're gonna take it for a spin and see if it makes a difference. All right, we got it jetted back to a 140. And this is kind of the first run with the Polaris clutch. We're gonna see if it upshifts and how it revs. Let's go. still feels like it's running really rich. I was giving it full throttle and it was still just barely wanting to go. I think I might throw this 138 back in it. That's what I had in it, and it seemed to rev good before. Just didn't want to shift. So let's try that and go again. I just took the airbox lid off of it. We're gonna try this quick too. So it's still the 140 main jet, no airbox lid, so it should suck some more air. So we'll see if it was starving for a little air too. So let's try this thing again here. All right, here we go again. So still 140 jet, no airbox lid now. That seemed a lot better. So definitely seems like we're running rich still. Felt a lot snappier actually when the rev. Clutches felt better too. So we're definitely kind of struggling for power here a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm gonna throw that 138 back in there and see how it runs again. Okay, just switched the main jet from 140 to 138. When I was looking back through the jets, the original jet in it was actually not a 138, it was a 132. So this thing was set up really lean. What I've kind of noticed is when I had the 140 jet in, if I unplugged the snorkel, flowing more air, it ran better. Removed the airbox lid, ran even better yet. So we're gonna try the 138. Ideally, I'd like to get this thing kind of dialed in with the airbox set up the way it is. But yeah, I'm going a lot leaner than what the manual should state, but yeah, it definitely does not like the bigger jets for some reason. So let's try this one out and see how it runs. All right, this is a 138 main jet. The airbox lid is on. The snorkel tube is unhooked, so let's go see how it runs. That felt really good. That felt like a good pull. Consistent RPM, pulled pretty strong. Pretty happy with that. Ideally, I'd like to keep this thing on the richer side. I don't really want to go back to that 132. That seemed way too lean. Well, we'll make a couple more passes with this and then maybe call it good on this thing for now. Well, I haven't fully given up on tuning on this thing. So I thought jetting was pretty good. I had it at that 138 before. It seemed to pull pretty good and strong off the line and everything, but make a good couple passes with it and just felt real boggy, and then felt like it was slowing down a bunch, not as good of throttle response and everything. So I might have found something. I don't really know for sure yet. So we've got the key on, it's in neutral. You can see my brake light is on, and down here it's really difficult to roll in neutral, and it sounds like my brake is dragging, and the rear pedal or brake lever feels pretty darn stiff compared to the fronts. So I think I'm gonna pop this master cylinder off. Occasionally what I'll see is there's like a little pressure relief system in these master cylinders. When the fluid warms up, it bleeds that pressure off if you're not using the brakes. We're gonna see if that's dirty. I'm hoping maybe that's my issue, where, like I said, it felt pretty good, you know, the first pass or two, and then after you make a couple, you know, laps up and down the block, and then all of a sudden it feels pretty sluggish again. So maybe that's our issue. We're gonna check that out and hopefully we make a little progress on this thing. So the top little hole there is the inlet, and then this bottom one is that pressure release. I've got a little pick here. I'm gonna kind of just poke at it. Oh, there it just went. So it just squirted some fluid out of there. So yep, that was plugged. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, I've seen this before where these things will plug up, it doesn't bleed off that pressure, and then the brakes start to lock up. I actually had it happen on a snowmobile of mine. You let off the throttle and the thing would just stop real fast. And then I opened the hood and the brake was starting to start on fire, so I had to clean it off with some snow. But yeah, basically just kind of clean up that little pressure relief port. We should be good to go. So our pedal, or brake, okay, so that feels a lot better. not super hard anymore. See if our brake light is off. Yep, and now our brake light's off, and let's roll it. Hey, that's way easier. Cool. This might be the problem I'm running into with all my tuning issues. So, I've still got it. So right now the jetting, I've got a 135 in there, and then I dropped the needle down a clip 2 on the clip there to lean it up a little bit more. But I might make a couple passes with this, and then might go back richer, because I feel like stock jetting should be pretty spot on with this. But yeah, if the brakes are dragging real bad, that won't let it go very fast. Cool. So I'm gonna put some fluid back in here, and we're gonna try it again. Well, this thing just kind of keeps giving me problems. So after I fixed the brake issue, I went to go rejet the carb back to more closer to stock, riching it up a little bit, and pulled the old carb off. And so here it is, actually. But the pilot jet, I replaced it earlier, went from a 45 to a 40. I went to screw this thing back out. Pilot jet would not come back out. It'll spin, spin, spin. That thread stripped out inside there. I wasn't sure what to do, so I was looking through my pile of parts and stuff, and I actually had a carb from, this is actually a Mikuni carb compared to a Kenan carb, from a 400 Polaris 2-stroke. So I threw that on there, and it actually seems to run okay. So, but I don't have it hooked up to the air box yet. The only difference was, like, the inlet was the same diameter, or sorry, like the intake side. The air filter side, this is a little bit bigger compared to the Mikuni carb. Here's my little boot here. So what I need to do is make a little adapter piece, some sort of spacer sort of thing, to go from that carb to fit onto this boot so I can hook up to the air box. Without the air box hooked up, it seems to run pretty strong, but I want to make sure that it runs okay with that as well. So that's what I'm doing on now. Went to the hardware store and found kind of a little rubber pipe adapter piece. So what this is going to do, that's going to slip over there. I'm going to cut this down a little bit, and then the other end will go into here. So that will reduce this down to fit into there, and we should be able to hook our airbox back up. All right, here's the first run with the Polaris 400 2-stroke carb on it. We're going to see how this thing runs up and down the road. Let's go. Felt pretty good. It felt like a really good pull. RPM felt really good too. Yeah, that felt way better than before. Pretty consistent. RPM felt really good. Seemed to pull strong. All right, we'll just hit it hard here from a standstill. Polaris carb for the win.